Hi guys, welcome to Robin Hood Diaries again. Good day. Good evening for me, starting a little bit late. So today I'm getting us out of the East. This is kind of the final episode of a 3-part mini marathon of getting into China, Red China, seeing things that no one will ever see again, 1977. 3.5 weeks of intrigue and beauty and 3 times as much stuff as I could tell you yesterday. Now we're getting the hell out of China and into a nightmare, which is kind of hysterical. What else? In fact, it's the story of my life, isn't it? So okay. So they're training us out of China from Foshan. Foshan was the last of the cities, and very peaceful, like a nice way to end the trip. It was so much going on that Foshan is just like this serene, beautiful place. So they train us into Hong Kong. So right away, the minute you start seeing color and signs and things, I get this sinking feeling. I had just spent 3.5 weeks in China, and now they're throwing me here, okay? And right away, there's colors, there's signs. Now this is 1977 Hong Kong. So if anyone loves Hong Kong today, that's great. This was 77 in Hong Kong. So they train us into Hong Kong from China. So it's immediate culture shock. 3.5 weeks, immediate culture shock. So we get from the train to the Holiday Inn. Now, like, Hong Kong was like the slums of Athens meets Singapore. You know, I mean, I know that it looks like this Mecca now, or even then, lots of tall buildings. But, so we get to the Holiday Inn in Hong Kong, and everything is like 600 feet tall. You know, there's like high rises everywhere, probably more than, I don't know, than maybe they've consolidated it all. And it's like, all 3 of the high rises out the window of our superstory Holiday Inn were what I consider impoverished looking. I mean, every balcony had laundry, you know, like rugs hanging off the balcony. And imagine that times like 60, and then another high rise and another high rise, but they're all like that. They don't look like Holiday Inn. Okay, so Holiday Inn is boring as hell. I think I mentioned in one of the previews, I was so bored one day I reread the book of Genesis. So we have 2 days, yay, in Hong Kong. 2 nights, 3 days. So first night, of course, we go to dinner in the hotel, and of course there's a horrible, you know, scene, not like, you know, like ranting and raving, but my stepfather is just heinous, horrible. And you can read about that in chapter 4. So there's that lovely dinner, and then so, you know, we're overnight, obviously, in Holiday Inn. So then, of course, next day, you know, my stepfather's, you know, in a raid or whatever, and so my mom, being my mom, decides we are going shopping in Hong Kong. Typical. So she throws on her shoulder bag, and we bolt into Hong Kong. I guess she knew, like, where the garment district was. She must have figured it out. So we end up in the garment district of Hong Kong. And so on the way there, she realizes that her shoulder bag is a lot lighter. Well, somebody had come up to us in the crowd and slid open the back of her shoulder bag and basically emptied everything out. So luckily her passport and stuff was in one of the pockets, but everything else was gone. Everything was gone. So you'd think that'd be enough. Oh my God, my purse, my things, whatever. Let's race back to the hotel. No. This is Liz. She's still in the garment district, and she's hell-bent on something. You never knew with Liz. So we find this silk shop, okay? Silk shop, fabric store, right? So we go in there, and she is literally like, I want that, like, you know, like 5 yards of that yellow silk, and I want, like, you know, yards of this and yards of that. I'm like, Mom, what are you doing? And so she starts, like, you know, explaining to me, like, Hong Kong silk is Hong Kong silk. It's from Hong Kong. And it's a great deal to buy it in Hong Kong, whatever. So she's got all of her silk, her bolts of silk. They will still have to go through customs in Hawaii, by the way. So then we go back to the Hellacious Holiday Inn, and our next day, our next big day after the Garment District Carnival is that we are going to go to Kowloon. So Hong Kong is like kind of a double island, like kind of an island, the same, but kind of like crackled. And so we were staying on what is the Hong Kong proper, which is the north end of the island. And then Kowloon is on the other side. And you have to take a ferry. And that is obviously the place to go, is Kowloon. So, of course, we get dressed up for dinner. I mean, not like tuxes, but we were dressed up for dinner. We get from the Holiday Inn to the ferry. It's the only way to get to Kowloon. So we pile on this ferry with all these swanky looking people, and we go over to Kowloon. So then, of course, there's another skyrise in Kowloon with a restaurant on top that, of course, Leonard has to go to, my stepfather, Leonard. No offense against that name, it just is a trigger. So we go up to the 100th floor of this high-rise restaurant in Kowloon, and I'm up there being a kid, and there's those things on the table, like, do you want a tequila sunrise? Do you want chocolate cake? Whatever. So as we all do, we pick it up, we look at the drinks or whatever. Well, I pick it up, and I'm no dummy, but so part of me is like, oh, look at all these pretty girls. And then, like I said, and then I'm like, and I can kind of get the gist of it, and I ask, what is this? Well, they were all call girls. They were all sex workers, and you could take your pick of what sex worker you wanted while you have your Eggs Benedict. So, of course, that my stepfather found that like endlessly amusing, and it was a big book. It was like a Lazy Susan of a book. And each page just had this gorgeous Chinese girl, whatever, wherever they came from, I don't know. And that was the little Lazy Susan book that you could pick your call girl. So we get out of Kowloon, we get out of the high rise, we go back to the Holiday Inn. I want out of here so bad at this point. I mean, it is like Vegas, Tijuana, Singapore. I don't know if you're in love with Honolulu. I'm not anymore. So it's that all wrapped into one mess. And those pretty boats, that like the Pan Sands that I was talking about on the secret island in serene Japan. Well, no, this harbor is just chock full of everything, like houseboats and Pan Sands and just it's just everywhere. So we're out of there finally. We're back and we're out of there. So obviously we have to plane in, of course, abroad, back home. But customs is in Hawaii. Now, if you will remember from last night, yesterday, where I talked about my mother's kleptomania, where she took that ancient ashtray from that fancy restaurant, thinking it was, Tupperware, and it was like 100 million year old cloisonne ashtray. She wouldn't cop to it in the bus, of course. So, whatever, she bought shit and probably stole shit and I don't know what with her, okay? So, but remember, she was in the silk factory. Remember, we were visiting all like the perfect manufacturing companies with the perfect families and the perfect workers. Well, there was this silk place where the little eggs of silk twisted up into a silk thread, and there was like hundreds of them floating around. Okay, more of that. So we get out of Hong Kong, we come into Hawaii, and it's customs, of course. It's the States, we're coming from Hong Kong. Hong Kong. So we arrive in customs. Okay, so now we've got like Liz's double whammy, like brewing, this she stole. And then my stepfather, who got this, like, spent $1 jillion on these rubbings, which is basically like, kind of like rice paper or whatever, rubbed, and then there's some like dragon or whatever. And these were very valuable and really tacky. So, so we're in customs. So first of all, my mother is hysterically jamming that ashtray that she stole, that was a fiasco at that fancy restaurant, into my socks. She's like trying to figure out which is the biggest sock and sticking in the socks and then folding them and putting with other socks. So I'm holding the contraband, the 12-year-old, with the 12-year-old's luggage. And then those silkworms, she stole 3 silkworms out of that Chinese factory as a souvenir, and she put them in a Ziploc bag in China, and then kept them in her suitcase, and then we're in customs, and they open it up, and there is a Ziploc bag full of silkworms. This is so my mother. I know it's hard to believe, but only Liz could do that. So there's all these smashed, God knows what happened to them in that Ziploc bag. I don't want to think. She's trying to explain, like, how do you explain that? Okay? And then she's just worried about the ashtray in my socks. So then Leonard is asked about the rubbings, you know, the valuable Chinese rubbings. Oh my God, they were so tacky. And so the customs always ask, what did you pay for them? You know, because then they base whatever on whatever. And so my stepfather says we got those for $1 a piece. Okay, now these had to be like hunted down through the most remotest antique store. We either had the choice to go see the pandas or go buy rubbings. So he tells the customs agent they were $1 a piece. So knucklehead 12-year-old, I turn to my stepfather in front of the customs official and I say, those weren't $1 a piece. He stomps on my foot so hard, I swear I thought I broke a toe. And I knew to shut the F up. And then he's, like, kid doesn't know what he's talking about. That was some other shit that we bought. So we finally get out of customs. Now we're stuck in Hawaii. So then we have to fly from Honolulu, Oahu, to the Big Island, because my stepfather has been bragging for years that he has property in Hilo. Hilo is a place on the Big Island. So all these years, you're thinking like, oh, it's like, I don't know, Island of Dr. Moreau or something, like, ooh, exotic, lots of like land. So we drive with a rented vehicle into what looks like an overgrown fruit stand. I mean, I swear to God, he must have had an acre if he was lucky. And we're in the bush, and you can't even go further to where, like, apparently he wants to go, pretending he has got more property in Hilo, which he did not. It was all just to say he had property in Hilo, BFD. So that was Hawaii, basically. That's all I want to remember about Hawaii. I ended having lovely, lovely times in Hawaii. If you ever go to Hawaii, go to Kauai. It's not the same as when I used to go, but it's still Kauai. Actually, I think on the very top of Kauai is the wettest place on earth. Anyway, so we finished up struggling to get into China. We covered as much of being in China for about a month as I could, and now we were into the snake pit of Hong Kong, and now we went back through Hawaii, and we're back in LA, and that's all of China that I promise I will give you. So there you go. I do have a 3-parter next week, and I do have 2-parters next week. Again, I never duplicate. I go over my notes to make sure that I'm not telling the same story over and over. And I swear I'll try to get some interviews. I really will. I have one waiting in the wings, but I've got so many stories to tell. I know it's unbelievable, but like I have a stack on my counter and like a million more in my head. Every day of my life was a story. So thanks for putting up with those stories and sharing them, or letting me like get them off my chest or out of my mouth in a bucket. And what else? But I love and adore you guys for all those reasons, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.